Welcome to episode 136 of the Daniel Yoris Podcast with today's guest, Adam Badger. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Joined here today by Adam Badger. Adam, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate you. I know we just had basically a full podcast that could have been recorded and sent out for some other reasons, but now we'll hit the record button and give it to the people.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. It's funny. We talked for 26 minutes and didn't record. And right before this, I was working on something. I was trying to figure something out. I was trying to create something on the computer for a challenge I'm doing, and it's just coincidental. I texted a picture of it to my assistant, and I said, I either just wasted 26 minutes or this is doable. So it's just weird that it was 26 minutes full times.
There you go. Coincidences all over the place. Can you go ahead and just introduce yourself? Let people know who you are and what it is that you do for anyone who might not know.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone listening to this probably doesn't know. I'm not Instagram popular by any means. My name's Adam Badger. I own a nutrition and training company named Badger Strength. Super creative name. I've been a personal trainer for coming up on 10 years. I've been, working out since I was 13, 14, so I'm 33 now, so a very long time. And I'm located in upstate New York, but my business is mainly online. So I work with people, from all different states.
Now, I'm pretty sure that we talked to this, but I forget. Did you transition to mostly online through the pandemic, or were you kind of making that transition prior to it? What's the timeline there?
No, actually, I probably should have focused more online during pandemic. I just didn't have the systems or the resources in place to know exactly what I should be doing. So I've been an in-person coach since 2014. I was working at a big box gym to start off, like most of us do. I worked there for a few years. I didn't start my own business until I was, 4 years into being a trainer. And then it was 90% in person. And I would do a little bit of online nutrition coaching, a little bit of online programming, but it wasn't anything I hyper focused on. It was just kind of situations that would pop up or opportunities that would pop up. And I didn't fully make online the primary source of income till the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. So it's, sometimes this is probably something we could talk about too, is sometimes I get caught up in the comparison game and compare myself to others when it comes to the online business portion. But realistically, the online portion where I've been actually focusing on building an online business is really only, coming up on 2 years of actually focusing on that.
Yeah, I am definitely guilty of also playing that comparison game in the business world, and it makes me actually feel hypocritical to be very honest about saying to not play the comparison game with your own health and fitness. People listening, if you're not a fitness professional, don't compare yourself to myself or Adam. This is our job, and then there's people who are way above us, professional athletes and professional strength athletes and coaches who have been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Don't compare yourself to that, but it's how can I compare myself to someone who's been in business for 5, 10, 15 years, and we just got here, we just showed up. Who am I to see that I should have so much success or so much whatever, right?
I mean, I think we're all guilty of it. I think honestly, man, I think if you were oh man, I don't compare myself to anyone, and I just stay in my own lane, and I just focus on being a better me each day. It would just be bullshit, because I don't think anyone's actually like that. I think even people and I'm always honest with my clients. I was listen, I can coach you because I'm guilty of the things that you're guilty of too. I do it. And for me, we were talking about before we got on air, I've been through business coaching mentorships, and you get exposed to just people who are I started my coaching business a year ago and I'm already making X amount of dollars, and it's 3 times what I make. And I'm what the fuck? How is that? I've been in this for 10 years, and this person was 23 years old and was just I kind of like working out, and now they're making this much money. It doesn't make any sense. But what I've found is that as corny as it sounds, I think the corny version is you're on your own path and you're kind of where you should be. In terms of, in those terms. And some people if I'm a husband and dad, if I was 24 and just starting my online business and I was single living alone, I'd work 13 hours a day, all day long building it. But I have other responsibilities and I want to be a present dad. So maybe my business is going to grow a little bit slower. But yeah, I think the comparison game is normal that everyone does it, but it's like alcohol. It's like, it's okay to do that once in a while, but it can be toxic if you do it too much.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be abnormal. I think you're correct in saying that. It would be abnormal to like legitimately not be comparing yourself to anyone. And if you're so much about like, hey, like I don't do that, like you're just in denial about what's going on in your head. I think another thing with this and even more relevant to actual fitness is that like the pie is so big. Like someone else's fitness gains don't take away from yours. Just because someone else like just started working out, 2 weeks ago and they're all like, they have a 6-pack and they're bench pressing 300 pounds and whatever, it doesn't mean that I can't also accomplish that. There's not a limit on the amount of weight that can be lifted or the weight that can be lost, right? There's plenty of gains for everyone, and like you can learn from that. And some people just have it luckier, have it a little bit better, have it a little bit easier than others. And I think another big piece of this is some people who seem to be new, they end up sometimes by accident doing a lot of things right, and it's just literally an accident. They couldn't explain it. They don't know why they did work or what they did worked, but it just happens. And so to compare yourself to that, it's just really not fair to yourself.
Yeah. And honestly, man, I think one thing that I like to talk about with clients is that I like to get a lot into the mindset, and I feel like I've had my own. I'm at 100 and something episodes with my podcast as well, so I feel like I talk a lot. I talk a lot to clients, as you do too. And I've done a couple of podcasts where I've been lucky enough to be guests on. So sometimes you catch yourself like repeating some of the same stuff, but I think it's, so I try not to come across as like someone who's just like talks about this all the time. But I really think it's important to I can empathize with people, because I think when someone says, oh, that person lost this much weight, and what am I doing wrong? Or I'm getting jealous because like I saw your other clients' transformations, right? And I'm not moving at their pace. I always try your first initial reaction as the coach is to be like, don't compare yourself to others. You're on your own journey, like this and that, right? But I think if we dug a little deeper, I don't think that there's a scarcity mindset in the sense of that person thinks there's only a limited amount of results. The same way with me, when I get in the comparison game with someone else's business, it's not that I think that there's like a scarcity amount of clients out there or business out there. It's a fear. It's an illogical fear of what the alternative is. So for me, if I'm making X amount and I see someone else is making 25, 50% more, it's not that I just need that or I think that they're stealing clients from me. It's my illogical fear based on my own traumas is that if I don't get there, I'm going to drastically fall into poverty, right? So like, with the weight loss client, I think they think if I'm not losing weight at that rate, or at least if that rate is possible, I want access to it because my current situation is too painful, too scary, and I'm too scared of going the opposite direction. So we have to kind of talk to them, be like, listen, like you are heading down that path. It just might be a slower rate. And I always compare it to just traffic on the highway. Like we're all going in that same direction, but as long as we stay on the road and we keep our foot on the gas, like we're going to get there. It's just traffic on the highway. It's just making the journey take a little longer. And I hope that makes sense, but I think it's just understanding where that fear comes from. So if you're listening to this and you're a client and you find yourself caught in the comparison game, instead of like shaming yourself and being like, I shouldn't be doing this, just ask, well, why am I comparing myself? And it's usually because you're afraid that the alternative is very painful, when in reality it's probably not as scary as you think it is.
Right. I think another approach that I use with this is to, and this is dependent on the client, right? This is where we get into individual conversations, and some people can handle this, and some people like I definitely wouldn't have this conversation, but I kind of like go further into the comparison. It's like, okay, you're, jealous of that person who has lost, twice as much weight as you have in the same amount of time. All right, well, let's look at the comparison. They have no spouse. They have no kids. They have, whatever their job is. They're like super dedicated because they have such and such event coming up. And so like they've been training 6 times a week. They have a meal prep company. They have like all of these other things. And so it's like, yeah, of course they're going to be making better results because look how much effort and resources they're applying to this. You are not currently like willing or able to do that, and you shouldn't be doing that because of XYZ in your own situation. And it's not better or worse, it's just different. So like if we're going to compare it, like let's actually look at why why what's happening is happening. And I think that is a more fair way to sort of assess, like, hey, okay, now it makes sense why, you know, they've made such great results and I haven't, because they're just doing more than me for whatever reasons.
Yeah. And I think when you get to the bottom of that, right, and you get to the bottom of that discussion with yourself, it doesn't change the next step. It's the next step is you still have to show up to tomorrow's workout. You still have to track your protein, whatever it is. So I think another side of that is just like, okay, well, yeah, like but it doesn't change what you have to do next. You know what you have to do next. It's just a matter of you're not doing it. And dude, to be honest with you, man, so like it's funny. It's funny also if you just if you also break down some of those barriers, how it can lead to cool things. So sometimes people will see that other client or whatever. Like for let's say in the realm of your coaching clients, and let's say you have a Facebook group or you post about your client results, and then you have another client who's like, oh man, like I see Jen is making more progress than me and I'm getting discouraged. You know, that client will likely probably never just randomly reach out to Jen and go, hey Jen, what's up? Like I'm Daniel's client too. You know, I see, you know, and give her a high five. And maybe breaking down that wall and seeing the person that you're jealous of and reaching out and connecting, that might give you some support or give you like a motivational partner. And dude, it's crazy. So like, for example, you, right? I heard of you because you were on Aram and Jim's podcast, Other Side Lifestyle, which I came across randomly, 6 or 8 months ago. I don't know how long. I came across it randomly, and there's something about their podcast just really resonates with me. It's probably my favorite fitness podcast out there that I listen to regularly. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, like that's a goal of mine, is to get asked to be on there one day, right? And I'm never gonna ask someone to be on their podcast. So like my goal is to build hopefully like
Aram and Jimmy, if you're listening, have Adam on your podcast.
Jim's been on mine, and I've had conversations with him, and I've covered conversations with Ram, not about the podcast, just in general, just reaching out to them because I think they're awesome. But that's just my favorite podcast. I vibe with them. I think I'm from New York. I'm a smart ass too. I think anyway. But I saw that you were on it. I had no idea who you were. I just saw it. I saw that you were on it, and I started following you. And my first initial thing was just like, I don't how do you get on these podcasts? Like I don't understand it, right? So, but I just followed you and I liked your stuff and I shared some of your stuff with no intention of anything. Just like, okay, I'll share Daniel's stuff because he's a cool dude and I like his stuff and I heard your conversation and I resonated with you. And now you've been on my podcast, I'm on yours. We've built sort of an Instagram friendship where we support each other's stuff. That's awesome. And now we've had deeper conversations on business and stuff. And it's helped me like be like, oh, there's someone else out there who like knows what I'm going through. And we've made a connection. So it's just a way to like, it's all about how you react, right? So I could have got caught in the comparison game and be like, oh, well, like I'm jealous of this person because they're on a podcast that I want to be on. But it's like, that's dumb. I was just like, oh, cool. That guy was on it. Let's follow him. Yeah. And if anything, it was just a cool, it built a connection out of it, right? So it's just all about how you react.
Exactly. And just to go deeper into that comparison and like use this as a very specific example, the reason why I was asked to be on their podcast is because I went to an event called Raise the Bar. It was like a fitness business conference in February. Aram was also at the event attending. There was a social at the first night or whatever, a social like outing as part of the thing. I was leaving from my Airbnb, which I made a mistake in getting an Airbnb instead of staying at the event hotel. So mistake number one. Then the Uber from the Airbnb to the thing like kept canceling on it, whatever. So I was like very late. Yeah. And for whatever reason, Aram was also late. And so we just like by chance like walked into the thing at the same time and walked in and then started chatting and became friends and whatever. But I didn't know him before then, and so if I like wasn't late in the Uber, maybe I would have met him at the event. There's a lot of people there, like maybe I would have met him, maybe not, like who knows, right? But so to compare that, like, oh, who am I? And you're right, like who am I that I should get invited on such and such podcast? Like it doesn't matter. But like if not for this happenstance event, which nobody knows that except for now, but that's not apparent. And so it's like, yeah, that's just what happened. In the same way, someone's like, yeah, I just like, I happen to really get into walking for some reason. There's like something in the neighborhood and like something happened. And so like that made me lose a lot of weight. It's like these little things that just, they can kind of happen by luck that leads to some good result. But unless you dig into what actually happened, you might not ever know. And therefore the comparison is just not really fair.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. And the crazy thing is like a lot of times when you're comparing yourself to someone else, like you don't realize that you're probably way more alike than different. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times, like for us, like just through conversations, like we were very similar beliefs, and also very similar, like, kind of points in our business and stuff like that. And it's just funny because like the perception is like, I've interacted with trainers who maybe are coming up, and their perception is, oh, Adam's ahead of me. And then we talk and I'm like, no, we're going through the same stuff. We're on the same level. And I know for me, anytime I see someone on someone else's podcast, I'm like, oh, that person's probably just way ahead of me. And like, they're in that circle and you know what I mean? But in reality, it's like, we're all kind of like doing the same thing. We're dealing with the same issues. And then there's always going to be outliers who are like way ahead. And so you're going to run into the person at the gym who is shredded year round and gets to eat, pizza every Friday and doesn't gain any weight. Yeah, there's going to be those people. But the other 90% of the people there are probably very similar journey, mindset, beliefs, and values that you have. And sometimes you just got to break out of your shell. And that's why I like to do a lot of like, we were talking about, like, I like to do like group things at times, group challenges and group things, because it brings people together and shows us, oh, hey, like I don't need to be in my own little bubble. Like, I've there's other people going through the same stuff as me.
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest things. I ran only one group thing like this past summer, and the biggest thing was people realizing, hey, like I'm not the only person who struggles with this. Like we're all different, like everyone's different and everyone has like their own individual like things and whatever, but the big buckets of stuff that people struggle with are like mostly the same. Yeah. And so understanding that, like, hey, you're not alone. You're not the only one who like has a craving for chocolate in the afternoon. Like that's like, that's not unique to you by any means. Like lots of people have different, instead of chocolate, it might be cookies, or it might be ice cream, or it might be something else, but like everyone's got the same shit. And so knowing that is, I think, a really powerful thing to like, hey, okay, this is okay. Like I'm not broken. There's not something wrong with me that I have this. We just got to work on some ways to figure this out and make it work with the results that you want to get. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree.
So another thing with this is then, now, like the comparison game also plays into longevity and how long people have been doing things. This is something that we were kind of just discussing before, and like the finish line of this. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people will see someone who's been, again, doing something, and it's like, hey, that person's been doing it for 20 years, and I've just been doing this for 6 months, and I feel like I'm in pretty good shape, so like I'm done. But there's not really like a finish line with this. Like you start working out, and then you just continue to work out for forever. Like it doesn't end. The same with your business. Like maybe, you eventually retire or sell your business or something, but like for fitness, like it just continues to go on for forever. And so I think, helping people to switch into this mindset of like fitness is just something that you do forever. Mm-hmm. This is just a part of your life, rather than, oh, this is just something that I'm doing right now for a wedding or for a vacation or for like some event or some challenge or something like that, which those things are all great and great motivators, but they're not the be all end all. Like the real thing is like, how do we make this a big part of your actual life? So in saying that was a very long winded kind of way to get at this. Like what are some of the things that you think are helpful in helping people change that mindset to making fitness something that they just do is just a part of their life?
It really depends on the person, obviously, like everything does. I would say off the top of my head, though, it's making the experience of doing it something that they find value in that they look forward to. So sometimes it's like, let's start with the workouts, for example. Like I think trainers over the course of time have just made working out and nutrition feel like homework, and people don't want to do fucking homework. So it becomes like, it's just got this homeworky vibe. Like you've got to do your push, pull, hinge, squat. You've got to, train at this rep range. You got to, and then like, it just becomes so sciencey and boring for the average person they're just like, I don't want to fucking do that because it's just homework. It's just another thing that they have to do. So I think if you were taking a complete beginner, like thinking like couch to semi-fit, the first step is to make this something that you look forward to in your week. And that's why in some circumstances, I'm all for some of the stuff us coaches maybe turn our nose at, like more like some of the group stuff and the group classes. I think that those are great beginner level, getting people off the couch and doing something, getting them introduced to fitness and building community. So I think it's step one would be make it something that you look forward to. One thing I'll write in a lot of my clients' programs when they're working out from home. So if a client's working out from home, I will literally write this in the description of their workout. I will say, go into what, let's say their gym stuff is in the basement. Go to the basement, blast some music that you love, and have fun with this. Because if you're listening, I know for me, if I have a good playlist or like a new song that I'm into and I'm listening to that and I'm getting a pump, I could throw all the science bullshit out the window and I'm going to have fun doing it. I'm going to look forward to the workout. So you got to look forward to it. Same thing with your food. Start finding healthier options that you can find yourself looking forward to. Don't worry about the macros yet. Don't worry about, all that bullshit. What are some foods that are healthy? Because if you're listening to this, I'll bet you $1,000 if I ask you A or B, what's the healthier option, you'd probably get it right. Healthier options that you can find yourself looking forward to. So it's got to be stuff that you find semi-enjoyment. And I hate the term enjoying the process, but you have to enjoy the tasks a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that'll get you that first, for a weight loss goal, that could get you the first 5-10 pounds off. It's just finding some stuff that you enjoy that you can do frequently enough. And then the next step is being a fucking adult and realizing that this is stuff that you kind of have to do, and then just doing it on the days that you don't want to. So I have we didn't get too much into this side of things, but I have a 2-year-old son who's about to be 3 in like a month. So 3 years old, typically. Getting him to brush his teeth or use the potty, right? When you're first starting to get those things, you have to make it fun. I can't just hand him a toothbrush and go, brush your teeth, because he'll just say no, right? And wrestling him down and scrubbing his teeth is not really a sustainable way of doing it. But if I make it fun and I'm like, oh look, dad's brushing his teeth too, and I make it fun, or changing his diaper if he doesn't want to, oh, you want me to sing the Lion King song while we do it, just get him excited about the little task. But at a certain point when he matures, he has to be an adult and realize I can't piss my pants and I got to brush my teeth, right? So it's like that with working out. I can make it fun for you in the beginning, but at a certain point, you have to just be an adult and go okay, this is something I got to do. And you got to do it on the days you don't feel like it. And I think so if you can go through that process of make it fun and then be mature about it, I think that'll get you a long way.
Yeah, no, super well said. I mean, I think you're right on the money with saying that for the most part, a lot of the science and the nitty gritty stuff, while I love it and you love it and all trainers, we all, we nerd out about this stuff and this is what we do. I think the good among us, we realize that for 90% of people, it doesn't really matter. If they have big muscle building goals, or they want to, get on a bodybuilding stage or something like that, yeah, obviously those things matter more. But if you're just trying to not be completely unhealthy, as long as you're moving your body in some way and not eating complete junk most of the time, you're going to be pretty good. The bar is actually very low, and that pains me to say because I wish it was higher, because it would make what we do so much more valuable. And but a lot of the times it's hey, just if you're going to sit on the couch for 4 hours, maybe sit on the couch for 2 hours and just do some other activity. And if you're going to have an entire bag of chips every night, maybe have a half a bag, or a little, only a little bowl. Just making those simple changes is enough, honestly, for most people. But you gotta actually do it, and this is where the maturity comes in, which is honestly the hard part for a lot of people.
Dude, so I recently did a 2-week challenge with people. It was a free challenge, and I had a bunch of people do it, and I legitimately didn't do calories, macros, no individualized workout programs. It's a free 2-week challenge. And the whole challenge was based around a 5-step checklist for each day. And the checklist was eat 3 protein-focused meals, have 2 servings of produce per day, do 30 minutes of working out or walking. You could choose. And then it was write down 3 daily gratitudes. And the goal was to be, you don't have to be asleep, but you have to be in bed with your phone and screens off 8 to 9 hours before you needed to wake up in the morning. That was it. No macros, no, you can't drink alcohol, no whatever, no bullshit. That was only 5 things. And people lost like 2 to 6 pounds in like a week. And granted, those aren't like, obviously like those results will steady out and they're not going to maintain that rate of weight loss. There's probably a big change in behavior for a lot of people. But people were like, oh my God, like I'm losing weight. Like this is so simple. And it's like, yeah, because that's how simple it is. You just got to do these like basic things. And as you mature, you can make them a little more complicated. And not to go too deep into like the background on this, but speaking to what you were saying before is like, you know, how trainers kind of like the nerdier version. We have to find ways to communicate. So the funny thing, I'm very upfront with my clients about this too. Not that anyone's ever really I think I've had one person ask me like, what are your like, you know, qualifications like, as a trainer? Yeah. And she asked me this like 8 months into coaching. So I was like, this is random. So I sarcastically messaged her back and I was like, I have a PhD, which I don't. So I was like a straight A student in school. But I didn't go to college. Like I just wasn't interested in going to college. So I don't have a degree in exercise science. I don't have a degree in nutrition. I didn't go to college at all. And I started training people when I was like 23. I went from age 13 to probably 32. Most of that time, I would say 95% of that time, not ever following like a set workout program. I was a classic program hopper. I was definitely but I just stuck to basic stuff. Like I did bench press, but I was like I wanted workouts was like the fun part of my day. So like when I went to do it, I was like, I'm going to try to squat this amount for this many reps today. And then, or I would do like deadlift Fridays or whatever. There was no like real rhyme or reason. And I made a ton of progress and I learned a lot. And the reason why I bring that up is because you don't necessarily it's not rocket science. Like you just got to do it. And I've managed to build a career and I still am always educating myself. I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm always reading and doing that stuff. But like the average person, when someone comes to me as a client, I'm sure this is with you. And I know you have a little bit more of an educational background in this stuff, but I'm sure you can agree. Like when someone comes in, you're onboarding a client. There's not these big whiteboards of scientific equations going on behind the scenes. It's like the first step is I need to see if you can stick to this shit. So I'm probably going to give you very basic guidelines. Yep. And we can graduate to more advanced ones as you come on. Obviously there's more advanced clients that you can be a little bit more in the weeds at first, but
sure.
The reason why I bring that up is because like if you're listening to this and you're ever overwhelmed by the amount of information out there, or you feel like this is homework to you, understand that it's very basic stuff. If you can make it fun, be an adult, understand you got to do it anyway on the days you don't want to, and just stick to it for long enough, like you're going to see 90% of the results you want.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think like, of all I don't regret the education and stuff that I've done and what I think, it's phenomenal, but I use like practically 10% of the education
it's crazy.
that I have, and everything else is almost about like knowing when to break the rules, so to speak, the rules that are very loose rules. But even then, it's like one thing I've said in the past, and I'm not sure if I've said it on the podcast or not, but like the difference really between a beginner workout and an advanced workout is just like the intensity that you apply to the workout. Like if I give a day one beginner workout, you compare that to my workout that I'm going to do today, it looks very, very similar. Now I'll lift a little bit heavier weights. There may be some different loading parameters and, whatever, but the differences are very, very little. The weird part is in like that intermediate lifter where you have like enough confidence to try dumb stuff in the gym, but not enough experience to know that dumb stuff is not going to get you anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And we've all been through that. I've definitely been through it too. And it's like, it just happens. And then eventually you realize like, oh, okay, yeah, this was dumb. Let me just go back to what I was doing and just add weight and, maybe use the barbell instead of a dumbbell, like whatever. It's just that stuff. But the basics, like it's so boring to say this, but that is actually what works. Like, and there's no real way to get around that.
And when I look back at some of the best results I got, some of the most fun I had, or where I was the most consistent with my working out, it was always just when I was enjoying them and I was having fun with it. And, when I remember doing dumb stuff too, like, just for show, just for video or whatever, in the gym. But it was always like, I was just enjoying myself and I was looking forward to my workouts. And I find for a lot of people, that's what you just gotta find, is you gotta find something you look forward to, and within reason, right? Like, if you can really enjoy something that's really stupid and then also go, maybe I need to mature this up a little bit. Like, I think if you've been going to like a group fitness class for 7 years, 6 days a week, and you're still wondering why you're not seeing great results, at some point you gotta be like, okay, I probably gotta switch this up a bit. But like, that doesn't mean you have to eliminate it. Like, I've had clients who maybe go to like Orange Theory or something, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. But like, maybe they're feeling like, I'm getting kind of bored with the system, but I like the community. I'm like, okay, well, go twice a week then. And then the other 2 days a week, do some full body strength training. And I know for me nowadays, I mean, I am like drawn to simplicity more than ever. As like a mature trainer who's like a dad. Like, I don't want fucking complicated. I want simple. I want to go and do the simple stuff and just get good at it. I don't want to have to think about it all the time, right? So if you're someone who doesn't want to have to think about the stuff all the time, stop trying to think about it all the time. Just stop. I said to one of the people in my challenge, she was like, she asked a good question, but it was like, I was reading on the internet, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, first advice is stop reading things on the internet. Like you're in this challenge for a reason. Like, just have one source of information. I promise you, like, if you don't trust me, if I give you any bad advice, just leave. You don't have to stay. But like, just have one source of information that you trust, use some common sense, and stick with it, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Another portion of this that might not connect for some people is that when we talk about like enjoying exercise, you and I and other trainers are unique in that, for the most part, like, we enjoy exercise. Like, I don't, our struggles are not really the same as a lot of other, like our potential clients and our clients. Cause like, I don't need to drag myself to the gym. Like, sometimes, yes, but like
100%. Sometimes I do. Yes. I need to drag myself
for the most part though. Like, I look forward to working out every day. It's an enjoyable part of my day just on default. So I don't need to like ramp myself up for that. Right. But to kind of spell it out for some people, I think that one way to look forward to it, where the basics really helps, is because the progression is very clear. Last week I was bench pressing 20 pounds, and this week I'm going to bench press 22.5 pound dumbbells. And it's like, okay, that's good. But if you're doing something different all the time, you're doing different programs, different exercises, different stuff, all over the place, it's really hard to measure the progress. And so it's very easy to get into the trap of like, well, what am I even doing here? I'm going to the gym today to do what? And there's not a clear answer to that. So this is why I'm pretty adamant about like, hey, you don't need to have like an Olympic training level program, but you need to have some sort of program, some sort of structure, just so that you can give yourself some sort of tangible feedback to be like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do here. And if I do those things, then therefore I'll get results. It's not about how much you can squat or how much you can bench press or whatever, but it's like, hey, I'm actually progressing, and therefore like I enjoy that progression. And I think that most people do really enjoy that progression rather than just going to the gym because it's good for me. Like, we don't do a lot of things that are good for us, but
I 100% agree with
something
you.
is helpful.
And I learned later on that when I had structure, I got better results, right? And that's what I like. And I think, when I kind of look back on even when I was someone who did, and when I say like I did random stuff, what I mean is like I didn't have like I never had like a sheet or an app that was like, okay, this is my workout for the day. But I had some structure in the sense of like, I knew I squatted on Mondays, I deadlifted on Fridays, and I would do like upper body days in between. And I was, at the time, my goal was to get as bigger and stronger as possible in like the main lifts. So I would always start my workouts with a main lift, and then I would just have fun afterwards. But there was still some structure, and there was some measurable progress along the way. And I think that can be fun we need that little bit of competition to go like, I did the 20 pounds last week, I'm going to go for the 25s this week. And like, we need that to keep us going, because again, like, how many times have you interacted with someone and they've been working out for 5 years, but they've never increased the weight on what they're doing. And then they're like, I don't know why I'm seeing results. I work out like all the time. And it's like, well, you're not ever getting stronger. Your body's like, after 3 months of doing what you were doing, your body said, okay, we don't need to change anymore. And then you kept doing that for 5 years.
Right. Or one of my favorite statements is like, oh, for this exercise, like I do the 15s. I'm like, well, what do you mean you do the 15s? Like, what does that mean? Like, for what would you do for 6 reps or for 15 reps? Or like, what did you do 2 months ago? Or what, like, are you just gonna do 3 sets of 10 with 15 pounds, like for forever? Like again,
that is such a good point. Yeah. I do this
really wrong with it.
yeah.
Like I just do this. Like I don't, and you know, I get it kind of, because people they're not, you know, professionally educated or whatever in this, and they don't like spend time thinking about this. And so they go to the gym the first time and they pick up the 15s, like, oh, that felt comfortable. And like, okay, I do that. But to your point about the group classes, the same thing can be true with people going to the gym on their own. Is like, hey, you've been doing the 15s for like 4 years, like, and you haven't changed at all. Like nothing has happened, and you're not happy with like the current state that your body's in. So logically thinking about this, don't you think that
something needs to change
the approach? Otherwise, you're just going to be more of the same. And how long are you going to be willing to keep this if you're already not happy with it?
And I have some clients who I do their programming and their nutrition. I have other clients who I just work on their nutrition. And I've had clients come to me who I'm just working on their nutrition, and maybe they're like when we had our initial call, they were like, I just really like going to my group class. That's what I like to do. And I always say, okay, cool. Let's make your nutrition changes, because the nutrition is likely fucked up. Like let's change some stuff there and see where we get results. And then, you know, if you ever want to switch things up workout wise, I'm happy to give you some advice. But naturally, when you're coaching someone on nutrition, you would talk about their workouts. And what I notice is a lot of times when I have those clients, I'll say, okay, well, do this for me. You're going to your group class 3 days a week right now. Every week, I just want you to pick one exercise per workout, and I want you to try to lift more weight or do more reps on that one exercise. And within like a couple of weeks, they're like, this is the quote, it's like, I've always done 25s for RDLs, and now I got up to 35s. And I'm always like high-fiving them, and that's awesome. And I don't have the heart to tell them like, well, you should have probably progressed to the 35s like 6 months ago. But like, they're like, oh wow, I've always just done this weight. And that's the nature of it. It's like you walk in, you get herded in, you grab the weight you normally do, you do it, you're sweating, so you're like, I must be doing something. And then you leave and you're like, okay, I did my workout for the day. And then what do most people do is like, they checked their fitness box for the day, and then they eat their salad for lunch, and then they go into the nighttime binge eating. And that's where they usually need the most help. So I think if you're ever on the fence about where you need to make the first change, I would say you probably need to change something if you're not seeing results. And I don't necessarily think it's like a what's better, nutrition or workouts. I think for some people it just depends on what's going to get you the best results the quickest. And for some people it's just going to be switching up their training. For some people it's going to be switching up their nutrition. But once you start seeing results, I think that one naturally bleeds into the other pretty easy.
Right. And it's also just path of least resistance, I think, for a lot of people, because most likely you should be probably changing your nutrition and your training to some aspect. But if you're not working with a coach, like you're doing this on your own, like you don't know all the things, and you shouldn't know all the things because it's not your job. But I think to make this sound easier for people, because we're saying this like, hey, of course you should have been lifting the 35s. And like, yes, in hindsight, of course you should have been doing that. But again, not your fault that you didn't know. It's just really like, have you gotten the results that you wanted?
Yeah.
If no, then like maybe something has to change. And then that's where you can look to hire a coach or look for some more information online or, whatever. But like look at like, hey, what am I doing and what can I maybe change about this? And maybe that's substituting cookies for carrot sticks or trying something different with your workout or like, just doing, you got to change something. Otherwise it's just going to be more of the same. And that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah. And no, it's a good thing that you brought that up because, that's one that you were asking me before the podcast, like, is there anything I'm kind of like fired up about? And this is actually not the thing I said, but it just popped into my brain is the fitness content that's out there is only for people who like need it. And I know that sounds like common sense, but what I find people doing is they're almost wired to look for what they're doing wrong, or they don't want to change what they're currently doing. So they're like, they don't ever dig deeper on like their habits. And the thing that I'm getting at is like, I don't care, and it doesn't matter what you're doing or what you're eating. I know that sounds stupid for a coach to say, but my point is that it doesn't matter if you're not complaining about your circumstance. If you are happy with your health and how you look and you're enjoying what you're doing, regardless of what that is, then don't listen to me. But if you are constantly complaining about how you need to lose weight, you need to change your diet, then listen to what I'm saying, right? So if someone comes to me and they go, let's say they're doing all the wrong shit. Let's say on one extreme, they're like, I do HIIT classes 7 times a week, and I do extra Peloton rides, and I eat 1,200 calories a day, and my big cheat at the end of the week is I have half a glass of wine and one of those Justin's like peanut butter cups, right? I would hear that and go like, that's crazy. You're probably going to fuck your thyroid up and be high stress, and you're going to like burn out. But if you're not complaining, I'm not going to say anything. As soon as you say, but I don't know why I'm not seeing results, then I'm going to go, well, this is all the shit you can do better, right?
Right.
On the other end, if someone's sitting on the couch all the time, they're eating processed food, they're sleeping terribly, they're overweight, and they're just like, yeah, but I don't want to make a change. I'm cool dying 15 years earlier than expected and not having great health. Then again, don't listen to me. But if you're like, oh, I got to get motivated, I hate the way I look, I need to change, then fucking listen to some of the stuff that we're saying on our content or on our podcasts.
Yeah, man, very well said. Very well said. I 100% agree. I think this also bleeds into like a larger conversation just in the online space and fitness for sure, but just in general, just about these like belief echo chambers where people tend to follow people who say the things that they already believe, and they don't want like their beliefs or their actions challenged. And the same thing goes with fitness. And so you'll follow, whoever you follow online, and it's like, oh, that person eats, such and such thing for breakfast, and like they do the here, I'll fire up with this. So they do like the protein pancake, mix thing for breakfast, and then they do like this, and then they have like these other foods, and like I'm trying to do that, but it's like not working for me. It's like, okay, well, just because you like that same brand of protein pancakes as them, it's like, well, something's got to give. Either you can keep following them and keep trying to confirm your own beliefs, or you can like live in reality and be like, hey, this is like, I haven't changed. I haven't lost any weight, gained any muscle, changed my health, improved anything in 7, 8, 10 months. Something's got to give here. And so we need to, it's difficult, but we need to challenge our beliefs. Yeah.
And that it's funny they said, I don't know if you saw, I don't know if you saw this, but like I
did see it.
Kodiak Cakes commented on one of my reels. It's funny. There's a local business who makes like protein pancakes that are actually like very legit. They have better macros than Kodiak pancakes, and I actually think they taste way better. And apparently he was like offended because that I was like shit talking like his stuff too. And I'm like, dude, no, like just to clarify, there's nothing wrong with either of those products. The problem is how people are applying those and like having unrealistic expectations, right? So I think that's the nuance there. But I agree with what you're saying. Like people are, and we're all guilty of this, they're gonna search for evidence of what they want to be true. And I think even with whatever you're searching for, there are just some basic principles that just never change across the board. So whether you want to believe that vegan is the best way, or you want to believe that carnivore is the best way, or anything in between, or you want to believe that you don't need to work out ever, or you want to believe that you should do 17 HIIT classes a week, it comes down to like, you probably need to do something to support muscle, and you do need to do something to support or to control calories if your goal is weight loss. I think if you're doing those two things, everything else falls into place, because if you just had those two buckets, I got to fill my support muscle bucket and I got to fill my calorie control bucket, and that's all you're worried about, everything else starts to make more sense. Because every decision you make is like, does this help me control calories, and does this support my muscle? And really, like, that's all the shit. So if you think of like if you want to get down the rabbit hole of why sleep is important, well, what does it do? It helps support muscle and recovery, and it helps like control calories. You want to get down the rabbit hole of how to reduce stress. Why would you want to reduce stress? Well, it helps support my muscle. It helps control my calories. Like everything starts to fall into those two buckets. Why should I lift weights? Well, it helps me build my muscle. Well, why should I eat high protein? It helps me build muscle and control my calories. Like it just always comes back to those two things. And it's not sexy to market that. It's hard to get people to do that. But like if I was in front of a room of 1,000 people, like we were talking about before we started recording, and I had to like talk to them about like one thing, it would be like, is what you're doing supporting your muscle and controlling your calories? If it's not doing those one of those two things or both of those things, you probably need to make a tweak somewhere.
This is why so much fitness and health information is so difficult, and it's because there are so many ways to accomplish supporting your muscle and controlling your calories. Like all of the diets, they all work. Every single one of them, they all work, and all of the workouts, they all work.
Yeah.
And so you can get into this thing where you build a brand, and we can't separate like the business implications on people's actual life implications here. It's like someone builds a huge brand based on X diet and X workout. And we don't need to name them, but there's plenty of people who do this, and it's not wrong. It's just like this is what's worked for them, and so they promote this, and people buy into it. And then but the side effect of that is that the people who follow that and are like disciples of this, honestly, to make it religious because it seems that way, is like it doesn't mean that just because that one works that all of the other ones don't work. Like there are people who are vegan, carnivore, and everything in between who have millions and millions, maybe not millions, but thousands and thousands of transformations and positive stories to say like, hey, look, like my thing works. Like if you follow my diet and follow my workout, it works. But like there's 8 billion fucking people in the world. Like there's a lot of opportunity for shit that works for like a lot of different people, right?
Yeah.
So understanding like, okay, veganism is like somehow supporting, controlling the calories, and like they're working out, so they're supporting the muscle. Got it. Okay. Carnivore is like, it doesn't include like potato chips and cookies. So like, they're controlling their calories, and like, they're lifting weights, so they're supporting their muscle. Like, oh, got it. And so does every single other diet and like workout like that's ever
existed. Yeah. And if you do, whether you do bodybuilding or you do powerlifting or you do strength conditioning or whatever it is, like you have to eventually come back to like one of those two things. You have to support your lean muscle and you have to control calories. And yes, you can periodize that throughout the year. There's going to be days where maybe you are increasing your calories. But when I say controlling your calories, notice I'm not saying calorie deficit. I'm saying you have to have a control on the amount of calories you're taking in. So you either have to have a goal, like I'm at maintenance, I'm at surplus, or I'm at a deficit. You have to know where you fall and what your goal is at the time. But I think that for a lot of people, they're just trying to find like that magic bullet that's going to solve all their problems. And you see this on like intake forms too, when someone's like, the question is, what's your goal? And they say, well, I just want to be healthier, and then they list out like 17 other goals that are all very, very specific and often contradicting of each other. And then they're like, fix me. So I'm like, okay, well, this is a 5-year process that we have to get you through. I have one client who's been with me now for going on 6 years. In February, it'll be 6 years. He's become like a friend, and he's very successful. He's like a CEO. He's very successful in life. He's got a good family. So just across the board, it's like a good dude and very successful in life. And he runs a big company, and he has like, when he first took over as CEO, he came up with these core values, right? And he's now been the CEO there for 10 years, and he still always comes back to these core values, and they haven't changed. And sometimes he'll vent to me and say, like, employees will always like come at me like, well, what about this? What about this? Or like, maybe we should tweak our core values. And he's like, no, they're the core values. That's the point, is they don't change. He's like, I've worked for big companies before where they change their core values every 6 months. Like, no, this is our core values. And he recently said to me, he's like, he's been with me for, like I said, going on 6 years. Through him, I've had other opportunities with corporate wellness, stuff like that. And he's like, the reason why and this dude, again, like, not to like blow smoke up his ass, but he's just like a successful dude. He could go train anywhere, and he comes and trains in my fucking garage at 6:45 in the morning, 5 days a week. And he's like, the reason why I have been with you for so long is because the stuff you told me on the first day is the stuff you're still telling me. And yes, like you always tweak things along the way. It's like, but you just are like always like every time I ask you about nutrition or whatever, it's just, you're always like, your core values have never changed. And he goes, and that's what's appealing about you. And he goes, I also just know I won't do this shit if you're not holding me accountable. So like, right. I think if you can take that and apply that to any area of your life. If you know what your core values are and you are committed to the fact that you need some system of accountability to achieve that, you can accomplish a lot of goals. And that could be career goals and that could be relationship goals. Like, I'm married. In order to achieve the goal of a marriage that lasts a lifetime, you have to know what your core values are, and you need to have a partner who's holding you accountable to those core values. And it doesn't mean that you're perfect or that you don't ebb and flow, but as long as you're not deviating from those core values, you can tweak those issues, right? And it's like that way in any relationship. You can't be like, I want a long marriage, but I also want to be able to hook up with anybody I want. Like, those two things don't mesh, right? So you can't be like, I want to lose weight and be healthier, but I also want to eat whatever I want whenever I want. It just doesn't mesh.
Right. No, you're totally right. I think understanding the core values is a really difficult thing because I think it's easy to mix up what the core values are. It's like whether you lift really heavy weights and use a barbell or you do HIIT classes, like that's not the core value. The core value is that like you're exercising, like you're working out. Now, whether you want to, lift in the 4 to 6 range, 10 to 12 range, you want to use cables only, you want to work out from home, like these are minor details and like they matter, but as long as you're exercising, like that's the core value, right? And so you can, and these things, to your point about like evolution over the 5 years or 6 years you've been training this gentleman, it's like, yeah, I'm sure you've learned lots. I'm sure you've progressed. I'm sure you have new ideas and stuff like that. But it's like, it's just supplementing the core, the human physiology has not changed in the last 6 years. It's the same, and it's going to be the same for the rest of our lives and for many, many lives after us. And so as long as you're allowed to grow and evolve and that's okay. But as long as, if you showed up one day and you're like, hey, you know what, actually, never eat meat ever again and never eat any type of sugar ever again. And he'd be like, what the fuck? It's like, what do you mean? Like we haven't been doing that for the past 6 years and it's been working. And you're like, no, but I watched like this YouTube video and like, trust me, like this is wrong. I'm like, it's probably not. And just to circle all back, it's the consistency, right? It's the consistency in the messaging. If it was changing your messaging every month or every other week, it wouldn't be reliable anymore. So it's the same thing. Your body adapts to your habits. If you're changing your habits every 3 weeks because you're quitting another diet or you're falling off again, your body never adapts to the stimulus that you're sending it. So, if you want your body to actually change, you have to consistently send it a signal. So people get so lost in like this consistency word. They're like, I know I just need to work on my consistency. I need to work on my consistency, but they don't even know what it really means. It just means you have to be telling your body that you want this goal every day through action, like not through mindset, not through manifesting, not through affirmations. It's through your decision-making process throughout the day. And the mindset and the affirmations, those things can help you make better decisions. But like at the end of the day, you have to take the steps and send that signal to your body. And when someone's like, I don't understand, I'm getting frustrated because I'm not seeing the results, and I tell you it's because you're not being consistent, it doesn't mean that like, oh, you shouldn't have eaten that pizza on Friday night. It just means overall, you haven't been sending a signal to your body frequently enough or for long enough. And if you are 45 and out of shape and you've put on 70 pounds in the last 20 years, you've sent a signal to your body over and over and over again that you want to gain weight and stay overweight. It's going to take some time to reverse that signal and then build the trust again from your body. Because again, you changed your messaging so many times over the last 10 years, 20 years, you now need to build trust. And that might take 12 months to get the trust built, and then another 12 months to lose the 20 pounds, and then another 12 months to maintain that loss. Like, and that's a 3-year process right there, right? It doesn't mean you won't see wins along the way, but like you have to be ready to stick in it for that long. So I think, you can tweak things along the way, but unless you've mentally committed to, I'm going to approach this goal for at least 12 months, then you're letting yourself, you're going to let yourself fall short. You have to like commit to that. And to actually do the things that you said you were going to do. I think this is a good point to start to wrap up on, but it's like, I see these fairly often posts about like, hey, I did my, and I'm all for meditation. People know this, like I'm all into the woo woo, like I love it, but it's like, hey, I did my meditation. I did my morning journal. I did my, 7.5 minutes of like direct sunshine in the morning. And I did this, and it's like, okay, you did 9 things, but you didn't work out. Like all those things matter. Yeah. And like, that's great, but like, you got to actually do the thing. Like if you didn't do those things and just worked out, like that would be moving you closer to your goal. And then we slowly add in the rest of it, because I think that's all important too. But it's like, don't get distracted from doing the frills and like, okay, I did an ice bath. I did a meditation. It's like, all right, but you ate like an entire pizza, 3 Coca-Colas, and didn't go to the gym or go for a walk. It's like, well, which one of these things do you think is moving the needle more? I had a client recently. He's like, hey, I started doing the grounding thing that you do. I said, okay, like, great. Like, did you like walk around the neighborhood? He said, no, I just like, I was having a beer and I just like walked outside in the grass and took my shoes off. I'm like, but what do you, that didn't help at all. Like you didn't go for a walk, you didn't do any of the nutrition
stuff.
Just
lie
like,
to
me
and tell me,
about?
Yeah, don't like, just lie to me at that point. I was having a beer. Oh, that's hilarious. No, but I think it's very true. I've done some business coaching mentorships before, and every time I had done one, they would always be very, very adamant about having like a solid morning routine. And when you like a fitness person, when I would join these programs, I would get all gung ho and motivated in the beginning, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do everything they say, and I'd be like starting to try to get this morning routine in, and it would be like, oh, do some like movement for like 10 minutes, and meditate, write down affirmations, write down gratitudes, and like do this. And I would notice I was like, this is not realistic for me to do all these things before I'm actually getting to the things I need to start doing. So what I did is, instead of going, well, I quit, this is too hard, because my goal, my core value is to still grow my business and help more people and provide for my family, I made that system work for me. And I just found that for me, the perfect morning routine is to literally wake up, eat something, and then start doing whatever work I have to do for the day. So if that's responding to clients, if that's recording a podcast, if I just knew that it was just the sooner I can start checking things off my list, the better. And again, it just sticks to those core values. So yeah, I think getting lost in the frills is just a no-win game.
Yeah, there's just no way around getting the work done.
Yeah.
And that's it. If it were easier, we would be sitting here telling you, because that would be a lot easier for us to say, hey, just meditate for 3.5 minutes every day and you'll be shredded and jacked. Like,
I wish it was
that would be a lot easier than what we're trying to do. So
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Is there anything else you want to cover before we kind of sign off for today?
Nothing that comes to mind, man. I feel like, if you're listening to this podcast, it means that you're either really interested in this stuff, or you're at least semi-interested, because you wouldn't have clicked it otherwise. So I think if you're listening to this at all, I would really hope that you just find something that is good for your health and aligns with your core values that you actually also enjoy doing. I think I think that trifecta is really important. And I think a lot of times when you're giving into those cravings or indulgences, if you were to dig deep, you would see that they don't necessarily align with your values anyway. So, if you are truly aligned with what you value and what you want, those indulgences and cravings and temptations don't become temptations anymore, because you just know they're not aligned with you. Awesome, man. Very powerful message. Great message to leave the people with. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate your time. Where can people find you? Your contact info, your podcast, all that stuff. Rattle it off. I'll throw it in the show notes after. Badger Strength on Instagram, badgerstrength.com. And then my podcast is called Talkin Fit, and that is on Apple and Spotify. Great podcast name. I wish I thought of that. Talkin Fit Podcast, Adam Badger, Badger Strength everywhere. Thanks for being here, Adam. Thanks for being here and listening, everybody. I appreciate each and every one of you. Give us both a follow on all the socials and tune into everything that we've got going on. 5-star reviews all around helps us, spread the message and keep things going and just, to really support the shows and support the message. That's that. Go outside. Be a good person. See you soon.